This is the April 2023 family meeting for juniors, and I'm going to pause this recording and we'll start again when everyone's here. Welcome. Glad everybody's here. It is another Sunday night, and it's the first Sunday of the month, so I know not everybody was expecting it, but we'll stick with second Sundays for most months, but this month, next weekend is a holiday for multiple faith traditions, and so we're going to have it tonight. Glad everybody's here. I did put slides for tonight in the chat, and I'll try to remember to post them there again as new people come in. This gives me a chance to do it right now because there's someone else who just came in. So there are the slides, and I'll invite you to put in the chat any information that you'd like to share about colleges you've visited, books or articles that you've read that you'd recommend. Let's see, updates, things you've learned that would be helpful to others, questions that you want to make sure we talk about tonight. And I'm getting those slides ready to share in the group. Here we go. Hope everybody's having a good time, getting ready for spring break coming. Not quite yet, right? All right. I just got back from a week in North Carolina. I was on a bus with other college counselors, and we went to I don't know, maybe it's at least 10 places, but a bunch of places, including UNC Chapel Hill and Duke and fancy places, but also the oldest women's college and the oldest HBCU and an HBCU women's college and Davidson College and Guilford College, all sorts of places. So super, super fun. And what I do is post those on Instagram and Facebook, like one a day kind of thing for the next while. And I've got photos there from past visits. So if you haven't already found Schooling Doula on Instagram and Facebook and you actually go to those places, feel free to follow those so that you can have access to those visits. All right, so I invite you as we're going through, if you have some things that you'd like to put in the chat about college-y type things that you've done since last time, great. And I just wanted to highlight tonight that there is this somewhat goofy newsletter. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit goofy, but it's usually full of good information that my friend Gail Grand writes. She's a counselor also, and it has helpful tips about what's happening in April for juniors and seniors, but that's, you guys are in the juniors, and then in May what you'd be looking out for. This is like changing information each time she highlights different topics, but monthly I send out kind of an update, and there's a link to this newsletter in there, and I just wanted to let people know that it's worth clicking on to check the contents. Great, I'm going to go back to the slides, and I'm seeing stuff in the chat, which is awesome. Thank you. Great. Loved UC Davis. I would love to hear some chatter. Feel free to chat in about that. And doing the University of Washington tour, if there's anything, tips or questions that you have for each other, I'd love to see that. Okay, and so tonight we're going to go over some high-level results from what we're seeing from the seniors since the last results are in. And then I wanted to draw parents and students, if you're here, attention to the application components, because that's where we're headed next, okay? So that's what we're going to focus on. And this slide set, if it's your first time here, this slide set has all of the slides from the past sessions that we've done, and so you can look at those. And there's also a Schooling Doula YouTube page. I'm not saying it's full of great recordings, but it is full of recordings of things, including a section about family meetings for juniors, and so you could find that and watch past sessions. All right, so I also added in this slide, which is if you multitask while you're listening to this and you want to do some college-y stuff that's related to what we're talking about, I would invite you to, if you're a student, I'd invite you to go on to some college websites or go into your email and open up some emails that you may have received from colleges. If there are ones that are on your potentials list and you're wanting to know more about them, go ahead and through admissions, get on a mailing list for them, register for virtual information sessions, plan a visit, email the admissions rep, etc. That's stuff that you could be doing while we're talking today. If you haven't already and you're ready to, you could also be setting up the basis of a Common Application account. And there's a link in this slide set to do that if you wanted to. Just a word of warning that the Common App opens now and you can fill in everything except for the writing section. So do not fill in any essays there because number one, some of the essay prompts for individual colleges may change, and also it doesn't roll over, so you would have to put it in again later, so you might as well not put it in now. But you could start filling out information, and for parents, your students will be coming to you and saying, where did you go to college? What's your major in? What years were you there? Or if you didn't go to college, things like, what's your job and how long have you had it? And where do you work? And all of that. And that's going to be part of the Common Application. And so, and then you also could be working on a resume. Maybe that's something you've started but haven't finished, or you have finished that, but you haven't done a LinkedIn profile. Maybe those are all things that I thought you might be able to work on during this meeting while you're listening to some things. Okay, so too much text on this screen, but just wanting to give the highlights and for me to be able to talk it through. Let's see.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Welcome if you're watching this. We just went over a few slides, but they're just right at the beginning, and now we're at the bulk of the meeting. This is the April 2023 juniors meeting, and high-level results are really good for my students that are seniors right now. I'm feeling really, really good. Everybody has a place that they like to go. A lot of people have a lot of options. Like I was talking to a student tonight who has 8 options and got it down to 4 and now trying to figure out where to go from there. That is a problem, right? Too many choices, but it's better than not having any options, which there are kids you're hearing about in the news who are not having any options. So in general, I'm pleased. And what it affirms for me is that fit is very, very important. So doing your research now and for the next few months about a particular school and what they offer, but then also you and who you are and what you offer, and finding a good match there between you and the school really, really, really helps. I'm thinking of a particular student that I have who is a great fit for William and Mary, and a lot of people did not get into William and Mary this year, but that person did get into William and Mary, and I think it was really about the fit and also the way that that student demonstrated fit. So this is something that you can have control over, is doing your research and finding places that really match you. I just mentioned some ways to demonstrate interest to the school: getting on their email list, contacting their regional admissions representative, going to their virtual information sessions. That kind of demonstrated interest, counselors are believing, is really important. Even if a school says that they don't track demonstrated interest, we believe that there's something going on there, that they want to see that you're interested. So everywhere, be authentically engaging, right? Like you don't have to be super false about it, but yes, be demonstrating interest. Okay, this third point is about institutional priorities. And those of you who were with us last time, we did this exercise where we were looking at students' applications, looking at all of the components of their applications, their activities, and their essays, and their recommendations, etc. And we didn't spend a lot of time, but maybe you'll remember in the beginning of one of the case studies, there was information about the institution and what they were looking for, like probably what was important to them, like they were a small school in a big athletic conference. So you might not have noticed, but I know from reading that and knowing them that they would be valuing people who could contribute to their sports teams, for example. Um, so there are lots of different ways that an institution or college or university will have things that are important to them, and those will change year by year. Their board, their administration will come to them and say, hey, this year in this class, we need this number of students, we need this number of kinds of students. We need to fill, we've got retiring oboe players, and so we need to make sure we have enough of those. And so from year to year, we don't know what those institutional priorities for sure are. That's why I say they're a black box. And so you just put out your best application, and if you get selected because you meet their institutional priorities for that year, great. If you don't get selected and you've put in a solid application, it's very much not personal. It's just that it just didn't work out for that to be a match or a fit this year. What I was going to say about those of you who are just joining, the link to the slides for tonight is what I keep putting in the chat. That gobbledygook is this set of slides. So as much as young people and parents can be thinking about this process as putting together your best shot, yes, looking for fit, yes, caring, but also if you don't get accepted, it's not personal. It's easier said than done for sure. I know that, but okay, and then balance in your list is really important, right? You only need one of the places to accept you, because all of the schools on your list should be places that you can feel good about going, okay? And you want to have a range of likelihood of acceptance. You want to have a range of size. You want to have options at this time next year. Okay, and so as we're thinking about schools that you're researching and what to keep on your list and what not, I'm going to be working with you to make sure that you have some balance, because there are always surprises. Like it's really not a science, right? I spend all day every day researching these things, and there were some surprises this year, and the people who had the surprises also have great other schools that they were accepted to that they feel good about, and I want that to be true for all of you, and I know it will be. So yeah, this point is what would have been an acceptance last year is a wait list this year. That's not true in every case, right? The most of the super fit ones still were acceptances, but I'm gonna be crunching a bunch of numbers in the next couple of weeks, and so I'll have an update in May. But there were some surprise waitlists this year and some surprise not acceptances, and that's going to happen every year. And probably in any one list, you're going to have one or two or three of those. And so, again, it's not personal, and we just move through it. This next point is that ED, or early decision, can be helpful at some private schools, and some schools are heading towards giving still good aid at that time. And so if it makes sense for your family to be thinking about possibly early decisioning somewhere, we can talk about what that means, but that's the one that's binding, where you would say, I'm going if you accept me. That's time now and over these next few months to be thinking about whether that makes sense for you. Do you have time to visit places, research well enough to by October have a sense of like, yeah, this school is a place I'd like to apply early decision? If so, that can have some advantage to you. Two more points are that AP scores of 5 can help at highly rejectives. Okay, what I mean by that is the ones that are like crazy low acceptance rates, like the 5% acceptance rates or the 8% acceptance rates, that I did see that AP scores were something that some of those students did have. That said, students who are listening, if that isn't you or that feels like not possible, then there are so many other places to go to school. Don't worry about it. And you don't actually have to submit your AP scores. We can have that conversation. But anyway, if it's something within your reach, I'm seeing it have positive effects. And then finally, for those highly rejectives, okay, I'm talking like maybe some of you aren't even putting in, you're not interested in them, but some of you are. Very high SAT and ACT scores seem expected. And I'm talking like 1550 and up out of 1600, or 34 out of 36 on the ACT. So I'm not saying that to scare anybody. I'm just being realistic that that's kind of the trend that's happening right now. Am I saying that that's required to go to any school? No, I'm saying like, you know, those super highly rejectives, that's what I'm seeing. Okay. We could definitely take questions afterwards about that. I'm also happy to see questions in the chat. That's my high level takeaway about the admissions results. For you all, for your juniors, the most important thing you can be doing is doing doing well in whatever you're doing right now, your extracurriculars in school and stuff, whatever is your main priority, that's the most important thing. When you have time for doing college research and looking into what's a fit, that's the best thing that you can do to invest in building a balanced list. Okay, I know this, if you are a junior listening, this is a really busy time. I'm not saying go crazy into college research right now, because you've got musicals and studying for exams and doing your assignments to do well in school. So I'm not saying this very minute turn to this, but as you're wrapping those things up, then working on fit and your balanced list is important. And remember, it's an iterative process. You might have a draft right now, or you're just starting to put a list together. No worries, and we'll keep gathering information, and hopefully by the end of June have a pretty solid draft list of what you're heading into the summer with, and then we'll continue to revise as we go. One tool that some of you have used with me is College Kickstart, and I'm going to make sure that in my next meetings, almost everybody has a chance to look at this, and we will be using it as a tool to make sure you have that balanced list. If you have the slides open, there's a link to College Kickstart, and if you haven't scheduled a next meeting with me to work on that, there's a link in that slide to do that scheduling. All right, here's the active part of the meeting. In our work in putting together an application, it's really, I've found very important to clarify your values. Okay, so if you're a junior here in the room and you're thinking about, okay, what are my top values? What's most important to me? That's what I'm going to invite you to do. And if you have time to do it now, great. If not, we will do it in a session together. There's a link right here to something called the values exercise. And there's just a whole list of values that might be ones that you have. There are also blanks down here, so you might have other values that are more important to you. And you go through 3 or 4 rounds of this. First, you look through and say, what are my top 10? Okay, and you can do like highlighting them and you find your top 10. And then you go through and you find your top 5. And then you go through, of those 5, which are your top 3? Of those 3, which is your top 1? And you could be doing that while I talk to the parents in the room. What we're doing here is trying to get at what are the top things that are going to be bringing your application together that you want colleges and universities that when they see your application, it's obvious the things that are most important to you. They bubble up through the writing, through the activities list, through the recommendations, all of it. And I just did it with somebody recently, and this person had growth, community, and commitment. And adults in the room, you can see that growth, community, and commitment are values that we could create an application around, right? That we're showing how activities connect to growth and community and commitment, how your course selection, how what you're writing about and what you choose to share with colleges about yourself connect to those themes, connect to those values. So that is a project that you could work on in the meantime, and we will also do it as an assignment. Juniors are gonna start to have a group of assignments that are related to putting your application together, and we'll work on it in the time that works for you. So don't panic. And if you want to put in the chat any values that are standing out to you, I'd be glad to see those. So again, since this is just a high level thing, there you go. There's the values exercise, and I invite you to do that. Let's see. So, and I invite you to think about how those values show up in how you spend your time. So like my person who has the growth and the community and the commitment, this was around a particular sport and a challenge that was happening where we're having to shift and really seeing that this was an opportunity to kind of like lean into an adulting kind of process and try new things and spread wings in directions that they hadn't been going. But keeping in mind dedication to the team and the community and the commitment to self. Anyway, and so we could talk about it coming up through that activity. We could also talk about it in school. How are you growing? What are you committed to? What's your school community? This person could write about a time when they felt they were growing, they were stretching, perhaps in connection to their community or connection to commitments in the past. So thinking about how your values show up. And when we do your application together, I'm going to be asking you to read through your work and see if you can see evidence of your values coming out. So that's something that you can be percolating about. You might not know it tonight. And usually values will change from day to day, like what feels most important. So today, what are your most important values? And we can check back another time about it too. Whoops. All right, this is just a reminder about the components of the application. So the next thing after values, what we're going to be looking at is how you spend your time. We're going to be doing your activities list, and I'm going to be asking you these questions about your activities. What did I do? And that's where you're going to have active verbs as if you would have in a resume, and I'll show you an example next. What problems did doing that thing solve? What did I learn? What impact did I have? Which is really an important thing to reflect on. It could be impact on you, impact on others. And then how does that learning connect to other areas of my life? And we're going to ask you to do it about your activities first, because your activities kills 5 birds with 1 stone. Your resume, your LinkedIn page, your college application. On Naviance, you have something you need to complete to graduate if you do Naviance, or if you're in another system, you'll have something that you need, to do your activities. And also you need to give this information to your teacher and to your counselor for a recommendation brag sheet. So working on your activities is coming up next. This is an example of if you were to create your Common App account, where the kind of way that it shows up once you put it in. So that's a Common App activities list. And then this is the link to example resumes, and if you wanted to be working on that. And then I wanted to spend a little time on the teacher recommendation that you're going to create your activities list and reflect on what's important to you about that activity. And then you're going to be putting together a brag sheet for your counselor and for your teacher to be writing your recommendation. One big wondering I'm having about these 2023 results is how important is the teacher and counselor recommendation? And in some cases, very important, it appears to me, because I have some students who are getting into the schools that don't require recommendations and are still ultra selective at greater rates than they're getting into schools that do require recommendations. And I'm thinking again about the importance here. And so I'm asking juniors, and I will be in your meetings, who might you be asking for teacher recommendations? Let's think strategically about that. And please be asking them between now and the end of school. And certainly I'm hoping June 1st-ish, right, is when you're going to be asking, because teachers do fill up, right? Popular teachers, teachers who have good relationships with kids or seem like they're going to be good writers, they sometimes reach their limit. And so the earlier, the better as far as asking them. And for that, you're going to need your resume or your activities list, and you're going to have a brag sheet that is required by them in most cases. And this link right here, if you go to it, it has the Garfield one, it has other kinds of templates, and you can ask your high school counselor or your teachers if they have a particular form they'd like. And I'd suggest that you would ask them in person, something like, I wonder if you would consider writing me a recommendation. If yes, or could you be a strong recommender for me? That if you're applying to the super highly rejectives, you're going to want somebody who's going to say superlatives. And so who might that be? And maybe trying to even be polite and direct with them. Like, do you think you could be a very strong recommender for me? And then after you ask in person, then you follow up with your email or whatever they say to do. Okay, and then the final thing before we go to question and answer is that it's time to be scheduling when we're going to do this college work for getting the application together. And the personal statement, which is the longer one core essay that is going to be used for many of the applications, we do in a 4-week process. And you don't have to work all day every day for the 4 weeks, but we need 4 weeks to get from start to finish. I have a template that if you click here, there's a link to, and I'll put in everybody's box over time. And this is just a sample of the first pre-work and week 1. And whatever day we choose to start, then this template can be matched onto it. So there are some students who are starting after AP exams and before the end of school. Some students are planning for August. Some students are planning for July. The expectation is that you have a draft of your personal statement and all of your main supplements and your activities stuff by the first day of school. So I invite you, if you haven't already made a plan with me about that, I would love it if you would text or chat or email me now with information about your summer schedule and when you imagine this 4-week period could be. If there needs to be a break in it, that works. That can work, but let's just be in touch. But it needs to be 4 weeks of time. All right, so good for me. It's the end of the half an hour. What I'm going to do is go to Q&A, and those of you who need to go, feel free to go. And those of you who want to, you have questions or you want to dialogue about anything that's been on the screen or anything that you have as questions, I'd be glad to do that. Exactly. Great. So I'm getting contacts about people's summer. So that's so great. Yep. And the person who had a question about the Common App, I'm happy to hear it. Are there other questions? I can stop the recording if you'd feel more comfortable with that. Let's see. Stop recording.
Recording stopped.
Okie dokie. Any chit chat questions? You were so wowed. Okay. I know there's somebody with
Hi.
a question. Yep. Hi.
I asked, so I'll turn on camera too.
Thank you.
How do you get a sense of which teachers can actually write a really strong recommendation? I think there's the sense of, do they know you? Do they feel comfortable advocating for you? But then I assume you would see a difference in the quality of letter that someone might write just based on how much experience they have. Like, do you think they look for someone who's got N number of years of teaching under their belt, or other sort of signals?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a clear answer to that. I have some guesses. Does anybody else in the room? We're not recording. Anybody else want to chime in? Any students? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I would do is that the thing is, this is a black box. Teacher recommendations are a black box because students have to sign saying that the teacher won't show them the recommendation. So we don't really know who for sure writes good recommendations or not. That's one. Two, you can ask seniors, who wrote for you and do you feel like they did a good job? And in some cases, the teacher would have shared it, just not within the application itself. And then my experience as a student is that I could tell teachers who wrote well because their assignments were well constructed, and they were coherent in their speech and in the work they did in the classroom with me. But usually I ended up choosing, or I recommend choosing, the person who knows you best, or who is likely to write in a way that shows off your superlatives. And that seems to be about relationship, but I'm happy to hear more questions or examples of people who are, teachers you're considering. Okay, I'm getting some good communication about people's summer schedules, which is great. I do have a question about foreign language in the Common App. So on the Common application, there's a question about your languages, and they ask you like your language proficiency and in things other than English. And so they ask you, how well can you read and write and speak? What else would there be? I feel like there are 4 categories. So
This is like spoken at home.
okay, there we go. I thought there were 4. Thank you. And this is really more of a demographic question than it is about your skills. And so you really just tell the truth about it. And so this, you are asking about whether you can be, what level of fluency, and remind me what the options are. You're saying it can't be I'm not fluent. Tell me what your questions are. What are the options there on the Common App?
You can like check as many boxes as you want out of, you can read, write, speak, and it's your like first language.
Yeah, but it's not gradation. It's just yes, no.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if you can read, write, and speak it, then you can. Do you feel like you can?
Yeah.
I'm modeling this because this is a question that all the students are going to have. So it's really your call. Like, do you feel like you could go somewhere and read, write, and speak that language? Then say that you can. If you don't feel like you can, then don't. It would, like, if you did have, if a language was your first language, this is your chance to show that. And right, that's kind of why it's on there. Cool.
Another question I have, sorry,
Yep.
that is
No.
now the right time.
Yes.
Does it matter when you had a teacher in high school to ask them for a letter of rec?
Yeah, I used to say junior, and I just checked with my counselor friends about this on my week, and they are still recommending junior year. But okay, I have been listening to college admissions officers lately, and you know how, I don't know if you were there at the last month when we were looking at the recommendation, I mean the whole application packet from students. The teacher recs are there along with the essays, or along with the activities list, along with everything. And I think they're getting, maximum a minute, maybe 30 seconds, and probably less, right? Probably 30 seconds or less on a teacher rec. And so somebody who is going to say superlative things, I'm thinking would be a good thing. So if you had a junior year person, and then you also have somebody who's from a different year who would say superlative things, I would say let's experiment with including that person. Am I making sense? Like, it used to be the guidance was only junior year and up, but I really saw a difference for a couple of my students this year, and I was thinking that maybe their teachers didn't know them well enough, and so their recommendations were kind of good but not great, and that might have made a difference for them. That's my thinking. Anybody have any thoughts, questions about that? I've seen teacher recs lately where they're bolding the like superlative type statements, and I'm also wondering about how to effectively coach teachers about how to write these in this time. And so I'm thinking about doing a webinar at the high schools where I serve people the most. Yeah. I think if you're not going for the highly, 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 highly rejectives, I think it'll be fine, whatever you choose. I'm just trying to figure out how to game that highly, highly, highly rejective system. So, yeah. Somebody who knows you well, has had you over multiple years, would be the like, dream teacher. And that's probably not possible in most large public high schools. So you just got to go with what you can go with. And I really didn't see it make any difference except for at the, like, I'm talking Ivy Leagues, and I was comparing Ivy Leagues to the University of California, Los Angeles, and Berkeley. Okay, so that's the level I'm talking about. Yeah. People have seen growth. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have a question.
Great.
Katie was wondering how many letters of recommendation
Yeah.
is a good number.
Well, so colleges will ask for different numbers. So some schools have 0, like University of Washington, the University of California, Washington State. Most of the flagship schools from states do not accept recommendations at all. For the privates that do accept recommendations, more and more, the ones that are not super highly selective are asking for 1 and maybe 2 or 3 optional, like, so between 1 and 3, 1 required and up to 3 optional. And how you can check that is, let me show you in Counsel More where this is. So I'm going to go to my sample student, hold on. And if you are in Counsel More and you go to your list first, I'll share it. I'm going to go into council more. And I go to this is called the tile version, which is pretty, but really not that helpful. So then you go to the grid version, and any of the schools that has the green heart that you have put there. So let's say, actually DePaul no longer is going to be a green heart. We're going to make it a yellow thumbs up, or we can make it a blue thumbs down. Those yellow thumbs up, blue thumbs down, they're not going to show up on the app tracker, but anything that you do have a green heart on is going to show up on the app tracker. And then over here, okay, so this has the deadlines, it has the essays, like if you click here, it'll expand and have what the essay prompts are likely to be. Oops. And then over here, it says number of recommendations and evaluations. So for Northwestern, there's a school report required, which is every school has a write-up about itself that they send. And you don't have any influence over that. That's just about what classes are offered at your school, etc. Then there's a counselor recommendation, and that's where you get that brag sheet together and your counselor writes things they know about you plus things that you've asked them to say. There's a mid-year report, which is your grades that your counselor sends. Final report, your final grades that your counselor sends. Here's about the teacher recommendations or evaluations. There's 1 required at Northwestern and 2 optional, so up to 3. And then you also can have other evaluators like coaches, in your case, dance teacher, people you've worked for, employers, those kinds of folks can write additional evaluations. I really don't think it's important to max out. Like I think sending 5 would be too much, honestly, unless there was really good reason. But you would at least have the 1 teacher evaluation at that school at Northwestern. So and so like Gonzaga, which is I know an interest, you've got 1 required, 1 optional, and other evaluations 2 optional. And let's see, is there one that like wouldn't have, let's see, Willamette has 0 required, but 3 optional. And so the less selectives are often that way. Willamette and Lewis and Clark are less selective, but and Whitman too. Great schools. It's just for people around the country. Fewer of them are coming to the Pacific Northwest. That's the only reason that they're less selective. They're very, very top quality education schools. So, and then like here's Western, and Western has, I guess you can send teacher evals, but you didn't used to be able to. So, Western doesn't usually have evals, but you're right, maybe they have ones now, but University of Washington, none. Yeah. Okay. What else we got? Anybody have any horror stories they've been hearing from their friends and family? Just want to demystify the senior who, didn't get in anywhere. Anything like that?
Hey, Brandon, this is Karen.
Karen?
I have a friend in New Jersey whose kid just got whomped. Just whomped. And we're trying to figure out, was it like a bad list? I mean, he's on paper, fine candidate, right? But
yeah,
just got killed. He got into 1 school and waitlisted at another, but
is there money involved? Because I was just thinking, one of the students I was consulting with, I didn't help him with his list, but he has 2 really, really good options. But his parents, the one's a teacher at a Quaker school, so doesn't make a lot of money, and one is a professor and doesn't make a lot of money, and they were looking for tuition exchange, which is a way, doesn't make the university very much money. And so he was surprised that he was waitlisted at so many places. And I was saying that I bet it's money related, in that, they were looking for people who would be able to pay them more.
That definitely might be the case in this situation. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shame, right? That's terrible, but is the one a good option?
It's not a great option. So it's Seton Hall University.
Well, Seton Hall is like totally coming up. Seton Hall is really coming up.
Yeah, it's just if you live in New Jersey,
I know,
right, 40 minutes from Seton Hall, you don't want to go to Seton Hall.
I know.
Right? Like that's, I mean, unless you do,
I
which
know.
some people do, but if
Exactly.
you don't want to go to college like a half an hour from your house.
Yeah, exactly. But the people on this call, Seton Hall, like, I don't know if those of us, Seton Hall used to be not something that people would want to go to, but it's the same way as Northeastern. I don't know if anybody's caught how Northeastern has changed over the last 35 years, but now at a 7% admissions rate, and Seton Hall is having very much its heyday as well. And so it is a solid option in a beautiful, cute little town that, might be worth reclaiming. Or there's the gap year possibility. And I had a student last year who didn't love his results. He always wanted to take a gap year anyway, and he went ahead and took a gap year and did some really interesting things and worked and reapplied and got into the school that he wanted to go to originally. So that's another option.
Yeah, thanks, Brennan.
Yeah. Anybody else questions that are coming up? How about spring break tour plans? Anybody have some they want to share? Okay, Miranda, are you still on? Nope. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
I want to hear why you loved Davis.
Oh my God, it was just I didn't think I was gonna like it at all. It's very quiet. There's only the main street where you come in, there's cars allowed, but there's no cars allowed at all. It's just bikes. Like I understood that intellectually, but when I went there, it was just amazing to walk around. Only bikes, and it's huge because it's like a big farm, basically. And the tour took like 2 hours just walking from one end to the other and back.
Wow.
The tour guide was amazing, like delightful, super interesting, curious, creative. Like just the whole place was a very nice vibe. It became my first choice, obviously for my kid, but not up to me.
I know, right?
She loved it too, and was annoyed at how much she loved it. So yeah, it was really amazing.
That's awesome. I was just talking to a senior tonight who's that's on her list, and her parents are like, really? And she's like, no, I really, really love it. And so
the tour guides were great. The tour guide before we even started said that they had just reached $1 billion in research funding. It's R1. It was just that everybody was super humble. There's apparently you can get free housing if you're into horses by like working with the animals, and you get free housing. Which Zoe, has been riding therapeutic riding for a long time. So I was like, that isn't. You don't even have to work for it, be in the animal like part academically. You can just apply for it.
Wow,
I just thought it was cool.
That is awesome.
It's unexpected and idiosyncratic.
Yeah. Erica, you want to talk about your tour at UW? You don't have to. We've got a professor from UW on the line. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, trip planning. Anybody have any advice for those people who haven't yet done some trip planning? Visiting colleges, is it hard? Is it scary? What words, wisdom? Okay. All right. Well, I know it's Sunday night. Oh, okay. Here, you're unmuted, but it's not working. Okay. Huh. Okay.
Well, we're going to Gonzaga
Oh,
on
good.
Thursday they're doing a full-on spring preview day.
And is
So,
that
like a all-day event?
Targeted for juniors?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And is there still space available if anybody here wanted to go?
I mean, we just signed up like 3 days ago.
Mhm.
So, and what I would recommend too is if one of the things I'm learning is if they say that their visits are full,
Mhm.
with some of these colleges, I email the admissions office and just say, hey, I see that we're really interested in touring on X date. I see that it's full, but can you let me know if anything, opens up or if you can squeeze us in? And because I know Western was all full for spring break. And so I emailed them and they were like, sure, we can get you in. Just let us know what day.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I did that with Seattle U too. So I'm
Great.
waiting to hear back from them.
Awesome. I love what you're doing, and I like what you're talking about, that you're going to schools that don't require a flight. You're going to things that are close by, you can drive to, and that'll give your young person a sense of kinds of options and how they feel on those kinds of campuses. You don't have to travel far in order to get a sense of a college campus. So I love the going close to home. Amy says, we just showed up when they said a tour was full and they happily included us at Lewis and Clark. Great. I think that's generally true. Now so another family, Lewis and Clark Lewis and Clark told them they were full, and so they contacted me, and then I contacted a former student who met up with them, so that's another option. So let me know if you're going somewhere and you don't know anybody, or you can't get a tour. We can connect you with somebody there. You might actually get more of the real scoop that way, because sometimes the tour guides are, they're great and they're also paid to tell you good things. Yeah. So next month, I would love to have people talk about the visits that they made, because I know a lot of people are going a lot of different places. So maybe be thinking about what could we share. The one thing for parents in the room, I have asked your students to take notes, and I don't imagine that they're going to take notes right into Counsel More, because it's kind of a awkward situation. And what I do is take my notes either into the Notes app on my phone, or sometimes people bring notebooks with them and actually handwrite things. Or most kids create a doc either in Microsoft if they're using the Office, or in Google Docs, and have a doc that is college notes. And then later, though, you can go in, I'll show you on Counsel More. This thing can be downloaded as a spreadsheet. So anytime you want your student list as a spreadsheet, just let me know, and you see how I have the capacity to export it as an Excel doc, and it'll go into the files here. So when you have Counsel More open, on the far right, there's this thing that's called Student Research Notes, and it opens up, and you can just pull your notes from wherever you've put them and put them in here so that they end up in your spreadsheet, and they stay in an organized way over time, and that can help you compare, because like right now, the seniors are using their spreadsheets to compare the schools that they've been accepted to see, which ones have which ones are the ones that they wanted for which different reasons. We can also have finances in there. That reminds me, if you are a parent and you want to be using the financial aid planning tool, if you right now are doing your taxes and you've got that information, I'd love to be building out college lists with attention to financial concerns. So do that College Aid Pro if you can, and I'd really be glad to do that with you. right. Well, you've been here a good long time, but I'm happy to keep talking. I have a senior at 8:30. These meetings are fun. Where are you gonna go? But junior parents have been asking me, like, how will we decide? And it'll take a while of discernment, but it's going back to those values that we were talking about tonight, that what is most important to you, and what are you, like in our first session at the beginning of the year, why are you going to college? We go back to those core questions, and there's core values. Then make sure we've got financial fit, academic fit, and social fit. And then usually it becomes clear what is the option that is best. And if it's still up in the air, then I say go and listen to your body about how it feels to be in that space, if you possibly can go. And if you can't go because of finances, maybe ask the colleges if they can help. Sometimes they can help you get out there depending on your financial situation. So anything for the good of the group, guys? Okay, thank you guys. Right. Be in touch, and if we don't have a session on the calendar, let's get one. Okay. All
Bye,
right.
Bryn, thanks.
Okay, bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Night. Thanks.